In this video, we will discuss editing line items. When on a quote, any changes that are required to a line item must access the line item details screen. To do that, simply locate the line in question and double-click. This will bring up the line item details screen. This screen outlines all aspects of the current line item. Starting in the corner, you'll first notice that the number of units received and shipped are indicated. As a quote, received and shipped are likely to be blank. As the order gets processed throughout the system, received eventually will equal units, and once it's shipped and invoiced, the shipped quantity should also match the units. As a quote, if you need to modify units, you can certainly do that here. When adding a line typically from any of the suppliers, certainly the part number, vendor number, possibly UPC code, and description are all set automatically. If necessary, the user can expand the description as it is a 255 character limit that can be added to if desired. The essential flag is an indicator that any and all items that have the essential flag checked must stay together. For example, if you had a system being ordered with software or a monitor and you didn't want them to be shipped separately, then by putting essential on each of those items, even though some items may be received at different times, the system will automatically keep them all together. So again, essential keeps each line with the flag turned on together so that they are shipped as one complete unit. The sort order provides an option to resort line items. Normally, users in the background can drag and drop lines up or down. In larger orders, when there are sometimes up to 100 or more line items, users may find using this option faster. The sort order is a numeric field that sorts itself from smallest to largest. In this case, with only one line, if I wanted to change it, for example, from 1,000 to 500 or 10,000, it normally would sort itself to position it to whatever that sort order would appear in a lengthier order. Again, it's a shortcut whenever you want to jump from a low item all the way up to the top or vice versa. Labor is something that's indicated primarily for services and will be talked about in the service videos. Unit of measure, if desired, you can set the unit of measure. Sometimes this is defaulted based on the information pulled from the supplier. In the second section, we have ETA date. This is the expected date of when the product may arrive. When it's a quote, we often won't have a value at all for this field. Once the product is ordered, the purchaser may update this information, thus allowing you to look at it at a later time to see the ETA of when the product might arrive at your location. Source. Source is a key field that indicates the type of item you're dealing with. The three main examples are the bottom three, including services, stock, and supplier. Supplier indicates that this item is being purchased or ordered from a supplier, Synnex, Tech Data, Ingram, etc. Stock would indicate that this item is being pulled from your local inventory. And services would represent a non-product order or line item. Note that when it's services, when processing this line would not create a purchase order, as a services is recognized as a non-product line item. The same for stock, since the item is expected to be pulled from your inventory, a stock source would also not create a purchase order. Only the supplier one will normally produce a purchase order for the given line item. For cut stock and reserve stock, please see the corresponding video with further description on these options. Manufacturer and supplier are normally defaulted when you pull it in as far as a search from any of the suppliers are concerned. The bill to is normally set to customer and will default to customer for all sales orders. Typically, the bill to might be used differently when in service. The status indicates the line status. Currently, this is a quote. Eventually, when processed to an order, the status of that line will change. When checking on the current status of an order, This field will help provide exactly what status the item is currently in. Commonly found: quote, order, outstanding, to be shipped, shipped, and eventually invoiced. On the far left, bin location. Again, if we're ordering the product from a supplier, this normally will be blank, but if the product is actually coming from stock, we may have an indication of what the bin location is in our stock. CAT codes, when it's a quote, this normally will be blank. This is rarely a field that the sales rep would normally set. This would get set typically once the line item is processed, and normally the purchaser will validate this field at a later time. Line rep. Line rep is an additional field that allows us to identify any additional information tied to this line, or identify particularly an IT person or anybody with a specialization relation to this line. Normally it defaults to the person who created this quote, and in many cases it may be blank. Item size. In most aspects this would be blank, but if there's a need for any type of definition of size, this is an additional field for that. The next three fields, user field 1, user field 2, and user field 3, are customized fields that can be added to your system from a company prospect. Each field has a slightly different look to it. User field 1, as you can see, is a plain text field that allows up to 20 characters to be entered. If used, the user can put any value they wish to type into this column or field. User field 2, as you can see, is a checkbox field. So turning this on or off may indicate certain aspects of the given line. And user field 3 is a drop-down, only allowing the user to select from a predetermined list of items that are currently in the drop-down. When using these fields, the admin module allows us to customize the labels that would appear above these. If you find in your example that there is nothing here, or there's just blank values here, then that indicates that the user fields 1, 2, and or 3 are not currently configured, and normally then they would not show up. If you wish to use any one or a combination of these fields, again, I draw your attention to the admin module, which will outline how to set these up. Down below this section are the numeric aspects of the line. We've captured the original cost of the item when we pulled it from the supplier. We can indeed add as well any bid or instant amounts. If it has a bid, we can enter that here and the corresponding bid expiry date. In this case, we've also added an instant amount of $111, indicating when that will expire, using August 28th as the expiration date. Notice that the cost is now showing the original cost minus the instant amount. So we track both the original cost of what it was purchased for and any instant amount or bid cost that may tie to it. Changes to the cell can of course be applied here, and based on the cost and cell differential, we indicate what the overall margin is for that line item. If using rebates, rebates allow us to enter one or more rebates in any one of these categories: ship direct, government, special, or other. In the event of more than one rebate, each line can have a different supplier that indicates who or what that rebate might occur with. We would indicate the supplier in question, the rebate on a per unit basis, and if we knew the rebate number, it would be entered here as well. Remember that this information is also reportable, so that reports based on rebates for the previous month will look to this section as far as information is concerned, including the rebate number. Foreign cost. This field, corresponding to the current cost, is only used if purchasing outside of your country. If you're in Canada, the cost represents the Canadian cost. If you're ordering this product, for example, from the US, and it's at a different cost, then you can indicate that here. SRP, or suggested retail price, typically is pulled from the suppliers when available. And finally, the GP dollar of the difference between the cost and the sell. Below, most of these areas are grayed out, but they do provide additional information related to the cost or taxes of the given line item. You'll notice that the PST and GST rates are currently blank. These will be picked up globally at a later time or when the order actually gets processed. In most cases, the user should never have to set this, as it will be determined based on the ship to province of the current order. If taxation is being exempt, for example, no PST and or no GST, indicating these checkboxes will determine the calculation based on the exemption of either PST, GST, or HST. Further to the left, this whole section is additional information that normally will be processed and updated as the line processes through until being invoiced. Things such as order date, which we'll select here, the date the item was received, invoice date, AP date. So when you need to track and indicate when this item was processed at different times, this upper section will reflect each of the dates that occurred. Below, we can indicate the purchase order number from the supplier once it's been set up, what the supplier reference was, AP referencing, the invoice and or credit note, and the AR batch as far as accounting is concerned. On the right, if we have a pick list, a packing slip, or a config slip, those numbers will be indicated here. Finally, an invoice batch and an AP batch are typical terms used on the accounting side. Lastly, in the bottom left are some additional fields that can be used by the location, including manufacturer bid number, distribution bid ID, which of course relate back to bids, renewal date, if you want to set on a per line basis the renewal date, we can do that and thus report on that at a later time. If the product has a license key, we can indicate that here. Program type is an additional field that can be customized as well. FOB or shipping line, if we indicate that on a line-by-line basis. And finally, a line tech. If we had some IT input on this and we wanted to indicate the technician involved with that, we could set that value. Finally, the three buttons on the bottom indicate additional information, such as if there's a serial number, we can show that. History shows any changes, if we change the cost, the sell, who changed it and when, and additional ship by information once the product is shipped to the customer. Once we've set the information accordingly, hitting the OK button will return us to the screen. As a shortcut, when a user looks at this line item and requests a change, for example, to the units, notice that if you double-click on the units column, when the line item screen pops up, it will automatically highlight the field you double-clicked on. So if the units is what you needed to change quickly, simply double-clicking on the units, entering a different quantity, and hitting OK will update that quickly. Same with the cell. If I double-click the cell, it highlights the cell. If I now wish to change that, it's a quick type, hit OK, and we're back to the main screen.